Hello and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA. We are excited to be with you on your first day of service and glad to have you joining us for this webinar. My name is Andy King, and I'm joined again today by Eric Powell.
Hello, as Andy said, I'm Eric Powell, and we'll be your hosts today from AmeriCorps. And you will also see our colleagues, Chris Hawks and Kyle Banker, in the chat and the Q&A. And all of our staff and webinar support team will be monitoring the chat and the questions that you submit to help you throughout the presentation.
And we're also thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. Let me welcome the Director of AmeriCorps VISTA, Meg Ansara, to join us in welcoming you on behalf of the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Meg, thanks so much for making time to be with us.
Thanks so much, Andy. Really appreciate it. I just want to do a quick sound check. Can you hear me?
You're coming in great. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you are here. As Andy said, my name is Meg and I am the new Director of AmeriCorps VISTA. Like you, I am relatively new to the job. I started at the beginning of the new administration earlier this year. So in many ways, I feel like we are starting this journey together. I wanted to share a little bit about me and also about this moment in time. So in terms of my own background, I am not a VISTA alum. I'm just going to get that right out of the way. But VISTA and the VISTA program has really loomed large in my life. My stepmother, who's one of my biggest role models in life, actually was an AmeriCorps VISTA in 1973 in Kansas City, Missouri. And it was a really transformative experience for her, and one that she referenced quite a bit in terms of her later life as both a community organizer and as a kindergarten teacher. I did start my career through service. I spent a summer working with the Student Conservation Association, which allowed me, someone from the East Coast, to get exposed to wildland firefighting through the Forest Service, which is something that I went on to continue to do for several more seasons. Over the last 20 years, I have worked on presidential campaigns, state and local campaigns, national and hyper-local nonprofits, most of which have been focused on public education. And I also started and was a CEO of a company called 270 Strategies. So through all that work, you know, at my core, I really, I approach life as a community organizer. And through all those experiences, I'm really driven by a couple core beliefs. One is that through collaboration, people coming together, great things can happen, and in many ways, the best things. The best way to solve problems is by taking a systems approach and to always involve those who are impacted in those problems or challenges. And that's really what VISTA is about. And that's why it's such an incredible honor to be the director of the program and to have a chance to work with all of you and the thousands more who are serving through VISTA. So that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about this moment. We are currently facing several interlocking crises that are and will define our country and our world right now. We are still in the midst of a historical global pandemic. Our economy has been battered by recession, and we are facing what is the generational crisis, you know, of our times right now with climate change. We know that these challenges are very real and have huge impact to so many, but particularly those who struggle the most. And while these crises didn't create the inequities that we see throughout our society, through our economy, our nation, our communities, they have absolutely shown a light and exacerbated what we know already exists. So the needs are tremendous, but I personally believe that the opportunity is even greater. And the fact that all of you in this moment in time have chosen to give a year to serve speaks volumes about you and the fact that you see opportunity right now as well. So I strongly believe that through VISTA and through other forms of national service, we can truly build back together, build back better, and build back stronger. You know, in many ways, I think VISTA was really made for this moment. But we have this incredible history. So you're beginning a journey today of your year of service. You're joining a program that dates back to 1965 and the war on poverty. You're going to hear lots more about that history, but it's really important for you to remember that you are part of this tremendous legacy that's focused on alleviating poverty, helping those who are in greatest need, and truly making a difference in the lives of individuals, communities, and our country. And so I hope that you never forget that. I was recently talking with a friend of mine who grew up in Maine, and she was talking about how the meal that she received at her school for lunch was often the one meal that she could really count on every day. It was the one source of constant food that she could count on. And that when she realized that she had truly made it, her words, was that when she no longer spent a large portion of her time figuring out where that next meal is going to come from. Many of you are going to be working on this issue of food insecurity, which is at truly, epic levels right now, particularly in the wake of the epidemic. You may be helping food banks staff volunteers because at a time where we need food so greatly, we also see our volunteer force greatly diminished because of the pandemic. And so you may be helping people like my friend. You may be working in public health, overcoming vaccine hesitancy, and doing community outreach to ensure that those who need the vaccine most are given an option to actually get it and combat the pandemic. You may be helping a program fundraise to create critically needed services and shelter for those who are struggling with homelessness. Or you may be designing a tutoring program or a tutoring training program to help students recover from what we know is tremendous learning loss. No two VISTA projects are the same by design. They are by design meant to meet the primary needs of their community, and that's part of what makes it so special. But throughout all these projects, VISTA is always about taking action, helping others, and personal growth. So as you begin this journey today, I encourage you to make the most of it. Never forget that you are part of a larger community that is here for you and a 50+ year tradition that you are also helping to shape and make real. We are so glad that you're here and now a part of the AmeriCorps VISTA family. Thank you for serving, and I cannot wait to see the impact that you will have moving forward. Good luck. Back to you, Andy.
All right. Thank you so much, Meg, for your really inspiring comments. It's great to have this kind of framing, very positive, but also significant way of getting our new VISTAs off on the right start. So thank you very much.
And that's a great segue for us to look at our roadmap and our agenda for the session that we're going to cover today. We'll talk a little bit about how VISTA began in the 1960s. We'll then cover key pieces of your orientation phases, discuss your service assignments, review some important resources that'll be useful for you, and then we will officially swear you in to Federal AmeriCorps service. In looking at our overview, as we go through our agenda items, we first asked you to log on again today to continue to build connections between our AmeriCorps headquarters staff and you. And again, we'll swear you in officially in just a little while. We also know that this webinar is a great way for you to meet other new AmeriCorps members and start to build connections that you've already been doing with colleagues across the country. And we will take time today to reinforce some of the very important details of your AmeriCorps service. And of course, we want to make sure that you leave today's webinar with a really good sense of where to find more answers to questions that you may have. So without further ado, Andy, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, absolutely. So it's my pleasure to be part of this official welcome to the AmeriCorps VISTA program for you and to join Meg in wishing you a very happy first day of service. Let's take a look at a few milestones in VISTA's history that led us to this moment. VISTA is at its core a program that expands economic opportunity to help Americans escape poverty. As complex as poverty is, we know that it takes a wide variety of strategies and dedicated community members to alleviate or eliminate it. We look forward to hearing how you and your VISTA project will work on expanding economic opportunity in your community. As Meg indicated, VISTA was born out of the Civil Rights Movement and the War on Poverty in the mid-1960s, and we remain passionate about the ideals that founded the program and committed to keep investing in and lifting up all communities in the country. Our first VISTAs were assigned in 1965, and they served in Appalachia, Hartford, Connecticut, and the camps of migrant farm workers in California. At the VISTA program launch, President Lyndon Johnson said this to those first VISTAs: "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation." The dedication of VISTA members remains a great hope for this country. And we know that VISTA alone can't fix the systemic barriers and oppression that exist for people in poverty, especially for people of color. But we know our work can be part of any possible solution. So here you see the AmeriCorps VISTA program structure that we looked at during last week's webinar. You can see the AmeriCorps headquarters is there on the left side of the screen with AmeriCorps regional offices next to it. And in those regional offices, AmeriCorps awards VISTA projects to what we call sponsoring organizations, those nonprofit and public agencies that tackle poverty in a variety of projects and in diverse communities. And within that structure, VISTA members, project staff, sponsors, and the AmeriCorps staff work together to accomplish these types of results. So in the last year, VISTA members raised over $194 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organizations. VISTA members recruited, trained, and assigned over 700,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 7.5 million hours. VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 2.4 million children living in poverty through after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in things like food security. And programs supported by VISTA members engaged 14,000 veterans and military families in service. And in a single year, over 8,000 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofits and public agencies. So this is just a snapshot of 1 year of AmeriCorps VISTA service, and we're really proud to support this work around the country. Now let's take a look at the sponsoring organizations. In the last year, there were 832 sponsoring organizations managing 849 different AmeriCorps VISTA projects. Together, the sponsors and project staff placed VISTA members at over 5,000 service sites, all in 1 year. Of all VISTA service sites, in general, about 15% represent rural communities and 85% represent urban communities. It's important to know that there are different types of AmeriCorps VISTA project structures. Some projects place all their VISTA members at a single nonprofit or agency, and we call these single site projects. By contrast, about 16% of projects place their members at multiple sites or offices that are all part of the same organization. And then the third project model is what we call intermediary. And this is where an organization it sort of serves as an umbrella to manage all the administrative aspects of the AmeriCorps award, and then they subcontract with more than one other nonprofit organizations to recruit, train, and manage VISTA members at those multiple sites. The project medals are important because they can have a huge impact on every aspect of a VISTA member's service. So let's get a sense of the types of projects represented today. If you know the answer, we've got a little poll here. Are you serving in a single site project or a multi-site project or through an intermediary? And it looks like, there we go. Sorry, we had the wrong poll up. Now I've got it right. Great. So again, are you serving at a single site project, a multi-site project, or through an intermediary? And if you're not sure, we've got an option for that as well. We'll give you about 20 more seconds or so to get your response in. Looks like most people have responded, but there's a handful still to do it. And if you're on a mobile device, maybe you don't see the poll, you can just type your answer into the chat and we will be able to see it there. All right, looks like the responses are slowing down. So let's go ahead and we'll end the poll now. And it looks like majority, 64% of you are serving at a single site project. And after that, about 19% at multi-site and 10% indicated they're with an intermediary, and then a handful not yet sure. So that's all right if you don't know the answer to this question. If you're in that situation, you might add it to the list of questions that you might want to ask your supervisor this week, just so you have a better sense of how your project where you're serving is designed and set up. All right, thanks for participating in that poll.
Well, as you know, VISTA's mission is to strengthen organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. In supporting this mission, there are 4 key program principles that apply to all of VISTA member service. Ending poverty. Every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty one person, one family, or one neighborhood at a time. Empowering communities. VISTA members live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out their projects. This is often facilitated by VISTA project sponsors, and we all work together to strengthen and improve communities. This is the VISTA program's long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs and applying good community development principles. Creating sustainable solutions. Whatever you develop or create, it might be a process, a system, maybe it's some other type of resource. You will develop them in such a way that people will be able to use them once your VISTA service ends. Building capacity. All VISTA members will increase the size of a project, increase the number of people served, improve the project's efficiency, or improve the project's impact on the community. These are ways that we define capacity and how we think about evaluating the success of our projects and VISTA members. So let's take a few minutes to hear from you. Using the chat, answer these questions. Which of the key principles resonates most deeply with you and why? For example, some of you may say it's ending poverty. On last week's Countdown to VISTA Service webinar, many of you said that you joined AmeriCorps because you wanted to help people move out of poverty. You may be thinking empowering community is what resonates with you because you really want to work with community stakeholders to identify needs and put those needs into action with the help and support of the community. Sustainability could be what resonates with you. You might have an eye for processes and developing them in such a way that they can be used once your AmeriCorps service year ends. Or perhaps capacity building is really at the heart of who you are and what you do. You may see a project and can identify a plan to increase its effectiveness and engage more people. And thank you certainly for all of your comments. I see a lot of great responses coming in. It looks like initially there were a lot of people talking about creating sustainable solutions and how important it is to put something in place that will last long after VISTA service ends. A couple of people mentioned empowering communities, because I think that is one of the best ways to creating lasting change and keeping things sustainable. Absolutely. And I see a lot more sustainability coming in, creating sustainable solutions, ending poverty, of course. Again, one of the critical tenets of the VISTA program. And again, none of these answers are wrong because this is really just a question about what resonates most with you. But we greatly appreciate the comments and other insight that you're giving about how we can inspire people and empower them to make lasting change after your VISTA year is over. The great thing is that all of these comments that you've mentioned that you're continuing to add into the chat are very useful. And the fact that these resonate with you really shows us that you are a good fit for AmeriCorps and the VISTA program. And hopefully, as you look at what you will be doing as a VISTA member, you'll be able to pinpoint specific activities that touch on some or maybe even all of these principles. We know that progress in this type of work can be incremental, and sometimes it can feel like it is very slow going. But it's important to know that our work is not just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills. The results of your work as a VISTA member may not be apparent immediately, but once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work and the impact of your service. So after having gone through the 4 principles, we want to focus specifically on the one you see on the screen, which is capacity building, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. Capacity building can sometimes be a difficult concept to define and describe to others, so it's really important that we all share a common understanding of this key principle. In the VISTA mission and program tutorial that you completed, you learned that your VISTA service should focus on the building of the capacity of your organization and not focus on performing direct service. This is a unique aspect of the VISTA program, which really sets us apart from other AmeriCorps programs. In brief, capacity building is about helping your organization do more with what they have so they can serve more people or operate more efficiently. Direct service is about providing tangible assistance directly to those who need it. So to make sure that you understand and have a good feel for what we're talking about, we're going to play a quick round of this or that to explore the differences between capacity building and direct service. To make it easy for this activity, we'll be using the chat, and you can use the abbreviations CB for capacity building or DS for direct service.
All right, so here's the first one. It is recruiting volunteers to build houses. So again, indicate whether you think it's capacity building or direct service by putting CB or DS in the chat. And you guys are way ahead of me with your responses coming in at a rapid pace. And it looks like it's pretty unanimous here. You know, early on, it looks like there were maybe a couple of folks in the direct service side, but now it looks like it's pretty almost unanimously capacity building. So let's go ahead and reveal the answer, which I think you already know, and it is capacity building. And of course, the reason for that is because in this scenario, you yourself, you're not building the house, but you are recruiting other individuals, in this case, volunteers, and it's the capacity of those people who will actually then be able to do the construction work as well as engage in the organization in other ways.
So here's the next one. Delivering meals to seniors or people with disabilities in their homes. Do you think this is capacity building or direct service? Again, use the chat, CB or DS. I'm seeing a lot of comments come in so far that are mentioning direct service. Definitely a lot of responses coming in. We appreciate your participation in this quick but fun and engaging activity, making sure we're all on the same page with capacity building and direct service. I don't think I've seen any capacity building responses, so let's go ahead and see where the green check mark lies. Wonderful job. The correct response is direct service, because in this example, you would actually be physically picking up the food and delivering it to people, which is direct service. In contrast, capacity building activities would be working to improve a senior meal delivery program, putting together policies and procedures, or maybe even developing partnerships to help with food delivery.
All right, so how about teaching a financial literacy course to low-income families and individuals? All right, so again, you all are very quick in your response, and it looks, again, pretty much unanimous on the side of direct service. So let's go ahead and reveal that correct answer, which you all had gotten. And this is, of course, because in this example, you're delivering the information, to the people who need it, directly to the community residents who would benefit from that financial literacy education. To think about it from a capacity building side, like activities that a VISTA member could do, that would include things like developing the curriculum for that financial literacy course, or maybe connecting with other organizations so that they can refer their clients to sign up for the course. Or it could be doing research or identifying financial literacy experts who could advise you on the curriculum development process. All right, good work.
We'll give you this one final example before we continue with more information. Organizing a fundraiser. Do you think this is capacity building or direct service? I know many AmeriCorps VISTA members talk about this as part of their activities, or they may be asked to assist with this in various ways. So checking to see if you think this is capacity building or direct service. And I'm seeing a couple of different responses come in. It looks like most are focused on capacity building, some direct service. I think I saw one or two people that said it's tricky and they're unsure. Wait for a few more responses to come in. I see mostly capacity building. It depends. That could be a good answer. Well, let's reveal the answer for this specific situation. So in this specific example, the correct response is capacity building, and that's simply because the act of raising resources is building capacity. The money raised builds the resources of the organization so it can do its work. So thank you all for those responses on those scenarios. We do hope that this was a quick and simple exercise providing a refresher and a reminder of the distinction between capacity building and direct service.
Yeah, great job, everyone. You aced that. All right, so let's check in where we are in this presentation. So far, we've reviewed some of the important aspects of the VISTA program to help build your understanding and your ability to answer the question, what is VISTA? Next, we'll review some key tasks that you need to complete during the rest of your VISTA member orientation. So here's another look at the structure of this orientation, which we call VMO. We talked about this last week. There are 3 phases, and whether you're physically on site today or you're teleserving, the structure is the same. So as a reminder, this is also reflected in the checklist, the VISTA member orientation checklist that you can download from the campus. And I think it was emailed in one of the messages I sent you. And I think we looked at that last week. Thank you, Steve. There's a link to that checklist in the chat right now. So you were invited within the last week or so to participate in an online criminal history background check. And we ask you to do that before today. So if you haven't yet submitted the information that we need for that background check, or if you didn't even get an email notifying you that you need to do it and giving you the instructions for how to do it, then please email VISTA fingerprint. It's just singular, VISTA, V-I-S-T-A, fingerprint at cns.gov. Give them an email, and that way they can follow up with you and make sure you have the information to complete that. All right, so another quick little question question for you here. This will show up as a poll. Hopefully it's just a refresher from last week. So true or false, federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance payments, but state taxes are not. And a lot of you are responding. More than half of you have already done it. Remember, you got to click the little submit button for your answer to get registered with us. All right, looks like most of you have had a chance to respond. We'll go ahead and close off that poll. And 95% of you got the right answer, which is true. It is true that federal taxes will be withheld from your living allowance payments, but state taxes will not. You are going to be responsible for figuring out if you're going to owe state taxes. Then you can do that by checking the website for your state, the state where you reside, the state tax office there, or if you use a tax prep service, you can often go to those websites and do a little calculator to figure out if you're going to owe taxes. All right, we've got a couple more questions for you, little refreshers.
So in the chat, you can go ahead now and take a moment to fill in the blank. If you originally elect the Education Award, you may change to the cash stipend at any time before the end of your blank month of service. Please be sure to select all panelists and attendees to make sure we can all see your response. See a lot of number 10s coming in. I'm glad to see people are responding quickly. Saw a 6th month, 10th month, a couple of other responses. Well, it does look like most people have done their homework. 9.999. Well, it's good to get it done before the end of the 10th month. So yes, that is the correct answer. The 10th month of service. You need to make that change before the end of your 10th month of service. So great job to all those who got it right. And we'll go with one more question for you.
All right, so this one will pop up again in a poll. Yes or no, if you currently have or you have completed enrollment in some kind of health coverage program outside of AmeriCorps, then the healthcare allowance is for you, yes or no. So if you already have coverage, is the healthcare allowance the option that you pick? And looks like half of you have already submitted your response. So we'll give you about 15 more seconds to get your answer in. All right, looks like most of you have responded, so we'll go ahead and close off the poll. Here the answers were a little bit split. It's almost like 60-40. We'll reveal the correct answer, and the correct answer is yes. So if you have coverage, if you have the health insurance, you're on your parents' plan, or you know, in any situation like that, then you can enroll in the AmeriCorps healthcare allowance that pays those out-of-pocket expenses for you. Just a reminder, you can see the details about the different benefit options that are available to you by looking at the VISTA campus. And if you're not sure, you may want to go back there so that you know which benefit is going to be right for you and your situation. Okay, so thanks for your responses there. And let's go ahead and move forward. So let's talk about some important issues that you learned about when you took the Civil Rights and Responsibilities course on the VISTA campus. The AmeriCorps VISTA program takes very seriously the issues of discrimination and harassment. So we want to make sure that you're all aware of your rights as well as your responsibilities. As you learned, discrimination is when receiving different treatment that is different because of a difference in sex, race, or any other protected class. And harassment is behavior that is severe or pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. If you believe that you've experienced or witnessed discrimination or harassment, and if you feel safe and comfortable doing so, here are some steps that you should take. First, approach and talk directly to the person that you suspect of engaging in the harassing or discriminating behavior. Again, do that if you're comfortable, you feel safe to do that. If that doesn't work, or if you don't feel safe or comfortable doing it, then you should talk to your VISTA supervisor. And if for some reason you can't go to your supervisor, or if you do and you feel that the matter isn't resolved to your satisfaction, then you should contact your AmeriCorps regional office. And finally, there's one more opportunity. You can contact the AmeriCorps Equal Opportunity Program, which is at AmeriCorps headquarters. You see the details listed there on the screen. So as you probably understand, rights go hand in hand with responsibilities. So while you have the right to a service experience that is free from harassment and discrimination, you also have a responsibility not to subject anyone to harassment or discrimination. So we ask you to please be conscious of how your words and actions might be perceived by others, whether those are your fellow AmeriCorps members, the staff at your project site, or community members. And as a reminder, the contact information you see on this slide is included in the handout for this session, and you'll also find it in the VISTA member handbook, which is on the VISTA campus. A little further review, AmeriCorps is a federal program, and like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. Like all federal agencies, AmeriCorps has an inspector general whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. Most VISTA sponsors are familiar with the rules around allowable service activities and those that are prohibited. And it's important for all of us to pay close attention to these. And there are a few red flags I want to make sure you're aware of. So first, if you're being asked to take over the work of a staff person, say someone who's out on extended leave, that is considered replacing staff and it's not allowed. Or if most of what you're doing is administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member. You should be focusing on the things that are outlined in your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by AmeriCorps. And finally, the majority of your work should be capacity building, not direct service. So from your coursework and today's activities, it's clear you have a really good idea how to distinguish those two. So we ask you to pay close attention and follow up if you're unsure about any of your service assignments. If you feel you're being asked to do things that are not appropriate for VISTA members, again, first talk about it with your supervisor. And from there, you can talk with the AmeriCorps regional office. And if the issue isn't resolved, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can contact the AmeriCorps Office of Inspector General with the information you see here. Again, this information is included in the handout for this session, and you can find it in the VISTA member handbook, again, on the VISTA campus.
Taking another look at the in-service phase of your VISTA member orientation, today you are starting your first day of service and your on-site orientation and training, which we call the OSOT, which is led by your supervisor and your project site. Also, we have 7 courses that we ask all VISTA members to complete early in their service. They are self-directed and they're intended to help you start strong in your project. First, we have a guide to help you make the most of your on-site orientation and training. Then we have a minute intro exercise to help you clearly and succinctly explain to others who you are as a VISTA member and what you are doing. The resource on theories of change looks at various ideas about what causes poverty and theories on how to reduce or eliminate it. There's also a great video explaining how poverty is measured in the United States. And there's a worksheet to help you unpack your VISTA assignment description, since I'm sure you'll want to understand it and know how to use it, and because the VAD is the foundation for your work plan for your year. The early service coursework includes a tutorial on how to understand the community you are serving by looking at demographic data and research. And finally, there's a powerful video that shares 13 lessons about poverty that came out of the VISTA program. The worksheets and resources dovetail nicely with your on-site orientation and training, and they can provide structure for the first few meetings with your supervisor. So we're going to turn our attention now to your specific service and the document that rules it all, your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD. As you heard us mention on last week's webinar, each member has their own VAD that was created by the AmeriCorps project. You might have received it during the interview and selection process, or maybe your supervisor gave it to you today. If not, you can log into your My AmeriCorps account and download it from there. All VADs include these three elements: a project goal, objectives, and member activities. The project goal is related to or identical to the overall goal of your AmeriCorps project. The objectives describe what you will achieve by the end of your service year. They are a bridge between the project goal and the member activities. The member activities specify what you will be doing this year. Those activities add up to the objectives, and the objectives add up to the goal. And because the VISTA assignment description is the starting point for you to develop your work plan for the year, we strongly recommend that you focus on it with your supervisor in the next few weeks, and definitely be sure to keep it in mind as you move throughout your year of service. It's not uncommon that adjustments need to be made to VADs at some point during the year to reflect new activities, which can be especially true given the current situation with coronavirus impacting so many parts of our lives. As we mentioned earlier, there's a VAD worksheet that is part of your early service coursework on the Starting VISTA page of the campus. This worksheet provides a nice framework for you and for your supervisor to discuss your tasks step by step.
All right, we'd like to hear from you again. So based on what you know about your VISTA assignment description, what will you be doing as an AmeriCorps member? What steps, tasks, or activities will you be doing to help eradicate poverty and build capacity in the community and in your organization? So again, use the chat and be sure you've selected all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your response. And you can, write just a couple of words or a brief sentence if you'd like. And I see lots of responses coming in. You guys can type way faster than I can. So it looks like liaising with government departments across the county and businesses and other community-based organizations, doing grant writing work, capacity building, outreach, developing systems, policies, and procedures. Again, more outreach and communications work. Supporting members and supporting the positive service experience for them. Working to coordinate volunteers and expand a volunteer program, recruiting, engaging the community, stakeholder engagement. Okay, these are all incredible things. I'm getting lost reading them because It's so interesting and exciting to hear of all the great work that is going to be happening for the next year in communities all over the country because you're here today. So it's really great to see so much variety and so much alignment too. Like you're all working in very different communities and so many different places, yet it's easy to see the common threads among what you're doing and what others are doing as well. So thanks for sharing your ideas here. I'm really happy to see all of that today and see how much you're going to be doing this whole year. All right, so you can keep those ideas coming. We're going to take this conversation a little bit further, and we want to talk about what happens as a result of your service, all of those things that you've talked about there in your assignment description. So what if you plan a community meeting? If you bring people together around a common issue, what is the impact of that?
And what if you write grants? How will writing a grant actually make a difference in your community?
Or what if you recruit volunteers for your project? Why specifically is it important to have other people engaged with your project?
What if you're going to be writing a lesson plan? What purpose does this lesson plan achieve, and how will it impact others within your community? So really, the big question that we're asking is, what if? And we ask this because we want you to reflect on why you are serving. Taking time to think about the true reasons behind your activities and the purpose of the things you're doing will help you understand and stay focused on the intended impact of your AmeriCorps service. And as you think about your own what if when answering this next question, we ask, what impact do you hope to make as an AmeriCorps member? What will actually happen in your community when you are successful? And when we talk about impact, we really mean what will be the end result rather than what will your activities look like. Certainly keep thinking about this question as you go into your year of service, because our work is never done, and you are part of the battle against poverty. We are all in this together. Keeping the impact that you can make in mind may help you get through tough times when you feel you may not be making a difference. So in the chat, again, you can go ahead and add your comments to the question, when you succeed in your service, what will happen in your community? We see a lot of previous comments to the other questions, and we're excited to see all of the work that you're doing. And now we're looking about specifics, and I see a couple of things about health equity will be promoted. The youth will be empowered to move forward in aiding my community in education. Families and children will be educated. More positive impact in the community, valuable relationships will be made, expansion and growth, and certainly in your VAD and in your communications with your supervisor, you might even be able to get more specific to mean what kind of expansion and growth and who will it actually impact. And I see a couple of other quick ones coming in, fighting food insecurity. And the community will be more aware of how they can help and actually get involved directly. Yeah, there's a lot of responses coming in, and it's clear that all of you are starting to think not just about your specific activities, but how will what you're doing make a difference and impact the community. So definitely keep these responses coming. They're very powerful to us, they're inspiring to us, and hopefully they're inspiring you as well and reminding you why you decided to serve in AmeriCorps and why you're so excited that today is your first day of service in the VISTA program. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, let me echo that. It is really inspiring and exciting. Only other word I can think of to see all of what it is that's going to happen as a result of your service. All right, so with all of those great outcomes and activities in mind, as well as the project and communities you're serving, it's time to make you official AmeriCorps VISTA members. So you may remember from the introductions during last week's webinar that we're located in countries all around in communities all around the country, Eric and I are working from home in Silver Spring, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And here's a quick look at the states that are represented today on this webinar. So imagine, if you will, all of these AmeriCorps faces on screen with you while you're taking the oath. So let's discuss the oath of service for just a moment. The oath of service is required, and it's an important step in becoming an AmeriCorps member. And because of its importance, we're going to pause the chat so that we can all focus on the oath. And if you have any questions during this time, you can type them into the Q&A panel. The button is at the bottom of the screen there, and our team will either answer them as soon as they can, or if they're not related to the oath, we'll hold them until just a little bit after the oath.
And before we actually have you take the oath, it's critical that we document that you are taking the oath today. And to do that, we're going to explain that there's a very short form in the My AmeriCorps portal. This is a very quick process, but we do have some important instructions to help you complete the oath form accurately. So first, once we end today's webinar, you will get an automated email stating that your electronic oath has been unlocked in my.americorps.gov. At that time, you can log into your My AmeriCorps account and complete and submit your form. If you don't see the email after 15 minutes or so, you can go ahead and log into your My AmeriCorps account and complete and submit your form. And if you are already logged into your account, you may have to quickly log out and log back in for the form to appear. Second, the instructions for completing the oath are super simple, and this is an easy step for you, but it must be done correctly. So Andy and I will go over these simple instructions a little slowly and a couple of times. It is very much worth the extra few minutes here to make sure you get this right today. And finally, please know that if anything is missing on the form, it will delay your enrollment as an AmeriCorps member and delay your first living allowance payment. And since we're part of the federal payroll system, it could take a couple of weeks to correct that error. So again, we don't want that to happen. This is a simple and brief task for you today, and it has a great deal of importance in your enrollment. So let's go over the instructions. For the date of your first day of service at your project site, you will enter today's date, May 10th, 2021. And you do need to enter it as 05102021. For the name of the CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered and witnessed the oath, it's my colleague, Andy King. Should be very easy to spell, as you can see it on the screen, A-N-D-Y-K-I-N-G. And again, just please correctly note the spelling to make sure that you type it in correctly. In the electronic signature field, you will type your full and legal name, which should be the one that matches what you used in your AmeriCorps application and what's on file in my.americorps.gov. Then you will check the small box at the bottom under electronic signature to verify that this is a legal signature on the electronic oath form. And of course, you need to make sure you click the submit button. It will not automatically submit itself. Again, we know this is pretty straightforward, but please be sure to capture these very important details and have them handy when we log off today's webinar.
All right, thank you, Eric, for those important instructions. So now that we've covered that, let's consider the oath that you're about to take. This is the same oath that's taken by all federal employees up to and including the Vice President. The President's oath is just a little bit different. So in the oath, it includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. So the word defend, this is not a call to arms. You know, for some, in some positions, it may be, but for most of us in the VISTA program, defending the Constitution may be just the opposite of taking up arms. What we're pledging is to defend the document that contains our civil rights. The oath also includes the phrase against all enemies. So let's consider that word enemies. In the context of VISTA, the enemy is what? Poverty. So here you can see the original oath, the text of the original oath on the left with an alternative version on the right side of your screen. The alternative version provides two changes that you may prefer. First, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm if you so choose. And secondly, you may omit the phrase, "So help me God," at the end of the oath if you'd like. And I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations around the country, scattered in so many sites, so many locations, that we don't have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that as you're taking the oath, about 130 of your fellow AmeriCorps members are doing the same thing at the same time all across America. It may seem a little awkward to recite the oath aloud if you're, alone in a room right now or sitting at a cubicle somewhere, but please remember that we're all right here with you. So now, if you would, please raise your right hand and recite the oath with me, and I'll be reciting the alternative version. I do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. All right, well, congratulations. Yay, you've completed the oath, which officially makes you an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So congratulations on joining your fellows across the country as the newest group of AmeriCorps VISTA members. All right, so for that oath form, again, you won't be able to do it right now, but just a quick reminder, on the screen, you see a shot of what it's going to look like when you go in to My AmeriCorps. And as Eric mentioned, the oath form will be available about 15 minutes after we log off from the webinar. So don't get distracted and try to do it now. It won't be available. And we ask you to please, please, please get this submitted today. Do it correctly today. So we've got folks at the VISTA Member Support Unit waiting to see your oath forms come in. And as soon as they do, we'll get your accounts activated so your benefits can start to flow. All right, so just to make sure you have the correct details, I will review again the instructions for the oath. If you have your camera handy, you can take a picture of this or jot it down on a piece of paper. So today is the first official day of your AmeriCorps service. That's 5/10/2021. Type my name, Andy King, in the field labeled the name of the CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered the oath. Type in your full name where it says AmeriCorps VISTA member's signature. Check the box under electronic signature, and then click submit. And again, please submit it no later than midnight tonight, your time today. One other thing to note, after you submit it, you're not going to get an email response to confirm it, but you'll be able to see in the system, you'll be able to just look and you'll see that your oath was submitted, and you'll see the timestamp on it as well. So if you have any question, you can just look in your account. And if your oath form doesn't come through, or if some correction is needed, you will hear from someone at the VISTA Member Support Unit with instructions for what needs to happen next.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you to you as well for serving in AmeriCorps, and with you officially now sworn in, we just have a few final agenda items to cover before we say farewell today. So first, as a reminder, the VISTA campus has a couple of features that are designed to help VISTA members connect with each other. I know we mentioned this quickly last week, and I saw some people talking earlier in the chat about connecting with each other. If you have not done so already, feel free to check out the VISTA map and the VISTA forums on the campus. And as you're getting settled into your service year, these are just some of the ways you can reach out to your AmeriCorps colleagues early and often. And let's talk about identifying with your fellow AmeriCorps VISTA members and the AmeriCorps program overall. One of the greatest things about being part of AmeriCorps VISTA is really showing off your AmeriCorps pride and connecting with other members, because you never know where you may make a connection with someone who knows about or has heard about the program. You can put the AmeriCorps logo on your business cards if you have them, your email signature, and on your organization's website and brochures. The more visible that you are, the more support you may be able to get for your project and the AmeriCorps VISTA program as a whole. That means more AmeriCorps members in communities doing the work that we need to get done, which is a wonderful thing. Earlier, as Andy mentioned, you received a link to a helpful links document, and that document includes links to the AmeriCorps logos, publications, and gear that you can use in the office and to represent AmeriCorps in the field. And during your service, you will receive instructions on how to order your free AmeriCorps gear. The free gear includes an AmeriCorps polo shirt, a lapel pin, a tote bag, a t-shirt, a water bottle, and a journal. The email will contain specific ordering instructions, and it'll be sent to the email in your my.americorps.gov account. So please make sure you keep that email address in your account up to date. And lastly, we really encourage you to share any service or training photos with AmeriCorps headquarters and your other AmeriCorps members using the AmeriCorps Twitter and Facebook accounts. We love to see your stories, we love to read about them, and of course, we love to retweet your photos. So definitely share your happenings and positive vibes with us.
Great, thank you, Eric. And here's another look at that resource list that you got last week. And again, this is available on the VISTA campus, the Starting VISTA page. So whether it's questions about sick leave or your healthcare benefits, the pay schedule, or some VISTA policy, this list points you in the right direction. And for benefits questions, particularly if you have very detailed or specific questions for your particular situation, you can also contact the benefits administrator directly, and their contact information is on the sheet as well. Looking a little further ahead as you settle into your AmeriCorps year, be on the lookout for networks of current AmeriCorps members and alumni in your area. They may be organized by AmeriCorps programs or what are called state commissions, and you can find contacts at AmeriCorpsAlums.org. And along with building your AmeriCorps network, there will also be a number of training opportunities this year to help you continue to develop professionally. Here in the VISTA training unit, our staff develops a series of monthly webinars for AmeriCorps VISTA members, for VISTA leaders and project supervisors, as well as for new sponsor staff. And next, I want to point out some resources that may help you if you are teleserving, whether full-time or part-time, as part of your service experience. On the VISTA campus, you can find a list of guides, videos, blogs, and articles that may be useful for you, especially if you're not accustomed to teleworking or teleserving full-time. We also have a recorded webinar that you can watch on demand, and that session includes tips and tricks for successful telework. You can find that on the Member Webinars page of the VISTA campus. And the links to those pages are in the chat right now. So thank you, Steve, for getting those posted. And we're going to get to your questions in just a moment. But before we do, I invite you to take just a few minutes, give us your feedback on this webinar. We're constantly reviewing the content, trying to make it better for the next group of new AmeriCorps members. So I really would love to hear your thoughts about what you liked about the session and what we can improve for future offerings. There'll be a link in the chat for you. Also, when you close out of the session, you will you'll see the SurveyMonkey in your browser. All right, so now we're to the Q&A portion of our agenda. So let's get to those questions. And again, we're going to use questions that you've posted in the Q&A. If you have a question, you haven't yet had a chance to post it, look at the bottom of the screen. You'll see maybe midway across a link for the Q&A, and you can type your question in there. All right, so Eric, do you have any questions at the ready for us to respond to?
Thank you, Andy. We don't have a lot of questions that have come in. Thank you to Kyle, Gina, and Chris for answering the couple that have. But the one question that did come in a couple of times is kind of a two-part question, and it relates to the VISTA assignment description. And the questions in summary were about what if there are changes that need to be made to my VAD if things have changed since when the opportunity was posted, and then also a question of what do I do if my VAD is confusing? So I will certainly start answering that, and Andy, please chime in if I missed something. I'll answer it in reverse order by saying everyone, whether you think your VAD is confusing or not, should definitely connect with your supervisor today and set up a meeting this week to have them explain your VAD to you. Sometimes things seem like they make sense or they may not, but it's critically important that before you actually start work, that you actually know what specific things mean, if there's acronyms that need to be spelled out, and especially if you think your VAD is confusing, it's critical that your supervisor explains it to you so that you can work with them as you move forward. And as Andy and I mentioned earlier, there are times where your VAD does need to change a little bit throughout the year. Maybe your VISTA project goals change or something changes throughout the year. It shouldn't happen every day, but it could happen periodically. And in those instances, your supervisor would work with you to make any changes that are absolutely necessary, and then they would just submit a revised VISTA assignment description to their regional office point of contact at AmeriCorps, because they would need to be aware of the changes. So if you have questions, again, your first point of contact is your supervisor to make sure you understand your VAD. And if you think something's changed, clarify that with them so they can make sure that you are both on the right page. I'm sorry, the same page.
Great. Thanks for that, Eric. Good advice. Yeah, the VAD really is important because it outlines obviously what you're going to be doing for the year. So as Eric said, it's important to be on the same page around that. Yeah, there weren't really a ton of questions, which I think is great. There are a couple of questions around healthcare. So one is, I want to get coverage through the healthcare marketplace. How do I go about doing that? So you might recall that as a VISTA member, you have what's called a special enrollment period of 60 days from your start date to enroll in a program through the marketplace. So to do that, you would go to healthcare.gov, look at the plan, you put in your information, look at the plans and sort of shop for one that you want. But then in order to actually sign up, you need to call the toll-free number because whenever it's not an open enrollment period, the only way to register through the special enrollment period is by calling. But they've got trained and friendly folks there who can help you with that. Another related question said, can I add my family onto my health insurance that I get through the health marketplace? And the answer to that is yes, you can. And so you can go back, you can shop again, or you can contact your current, if you already have coverage, you can contact that insurance company and ask them what their process is, if they allow you to modify it, at this time. Another question in here around insurance was, can I get help paying for the insurance? So that's the one thing that the VISTA program doesn't offer. So if you need health coverage for your family members, that's not a benefit that we provide. We can reimburse you for out-of-pocket expenses beyond your insurance costs for your own health care, but we don't provide any benefits for family members.
The only other question I saw that was generalizable to quite a few people was around some of the benefits in terms of loan forbearance and service letters. And just a reminder, we mentioned it last week, but it definitely serves repeating, is that with today being your first day of service, it'll be about another week or so. It could be by the end of this week, but let's say in about a week is when you should have access in your My AmeriCorps account to access your service letters, to submit loan forbearance requests. It takes a little bit of time with the system and making sure that we collect all of the oaths correctly, and the VISTA member support unit does everything they need to officially get you processed in the system. So it should all be available to you in approximately 1 week from today, if not sooner.
Great, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm looking again through here, and I feel like we've covered all the major questions here. And, but we'll give you like one final call for questions. And it looks like most questions have been answered directly through the Q&A panel. So if you answered one, or sorry, you asked one and you didn't hear us read it, look in the Q&A and you'll see a written response from one of our colleagues. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and wrap up and move on. We really appreciate those questions that you asked, and we hope that our discussion today helped you build some new understanding, maybe some connections with other VISTA members, and to clarify some of the complexity of starting your AmeriCorps service. And if not, at least we helped you know where you can go to find information to answer your questions. And of course, we've sworn you in as an official AmeriCorps VISTA member. So again, I want to say welcome to you. And before we depart, I want to leave you with one more quote from President Lyndon Johnson. This was something he also shared at the launch of the program back in 1965. He said, "On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life." To that, I would add that your service and commitment to community change as an AmeriCorps VISTA member gives me hope that our country can eliminate poverty and the injustices that cause and perpetuate it. So thank you very much for serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA member and for your participation today. Both Eric and I wish you all the success in the world this year. This concludes our webinar. Thank you again.